I was standing just 3 feet away when Serena Blake said it. The rooftop in downtown Los Angeles pulsed with energy that night, the kind of night where the city lights blurred into the ocean haze below, and every glass of champagne caught the filament string lights like captured stars. Press lined the perimeter, cameras flashing in controlled bursts. Investors in tailored suits laughed too loud. The air smelled of grilled octopus, yuzu foam, and expensive cologne. Serena smiled that practiced smile, one hand raised like she was conducting an orchestra only she could hear. She wore a silk gown that caught the wind just right. "And a special thanks to our tech support," she said, pausing to glance at her assistant. "What's her name again?"
Ah,
"Yes, Amelia. Our original little coding genius still tinkering away somewhere in the background." She lifted her flute. "Thanks for keeping the servers humming." "Hun." The crowd laughed. Even the head chef in his crisp whites chuckled. Even the venture guy from Silicon Beach who'd flown in for the launch. I felt something shift inside my chest, not hot rage, but a cold clarity, like stepping into a walk-in freezer after hours in a hot kitchen. My jaw tightened. I didn't smile back. I didn't raise my glass. I simply turned, slipped through the service door, past the stainless steel counters where line cooks were plating the final tasting menu, and out into the service alley behind the building. The night air hit warm and thick with the scent of dumpster grease and distant rain. I leaned against the brick wall for a moment, letting the sounds of the party fade behind me. Laughter, clinking glasses, the low hum of a jazz quartet. None of them knew what was coming. None of them had any idea who really owned the heart of Lumina Flavors. Let me take you back, because the story doesn't start on that rooftop. It starts 8 years earlier in a cramped apartment above a coffee shop in Silver Lake. Ryan Hale and I were building something from nothing. He had the vision for a modern American bistro chain that blended farm-to-table with seamless technology. I had the code. We sketched menus on napkins and funded our first cloud servers with credit cards we probably shouldn't have maxed out. I built the entire platform myself, point-of-sale system, QR code, ordering, real-time inventory synced to temperature sensors in every walk-in, menu publishing pipeline that pushed updates across locations without a hitch. Everything containerized, written clean and go. Licensed through my LLC, Quinn Forge Holdings. Ryan understood loyalty. He paid me well, respected the autonomy I craved, and never tried to take credit that wasn't his. We had an understanding. I stayed out of the spotlight, kept the systems flawless, and collected bonuses that reflected what I brought to the table. But when Serena Blake stepped in after Ryan's exit, fresh off a rebrand tour with Manhattan consultants and visions of elevating the dining experience through digital disruption, everything shifted. The first warning sign was subtle. A permissions ping in my admin dashboard that I hadn't initiated. Someone trying to mirror the licensing node to a new stack. I revoked it, traced the IP back to one of their branding hires, and let it slide at first. Then came the email from HR. Phrased so neutrally it felt like a weather update, due to organizational realignments under the Lumina Neo initiative. We are reviewing compensation structures for non-guest-facing roles. Translation: your bonuses no longer fit the new narrative. I didn't argue publicly. Instead, I logged in quietly, pulled up the original 2015 licensing agreement. Page 4. Section 3B made it crystal clear. All core operating rights, UI logic, backend operations, menu publishing, order processing, administrative controls, remained exclusively with Amelia Quinn operating through Quinn Forge Holdings. Renewable, revocable only upon explicit transfer and compensation. Ryan had signed it. Serena never read it. Over the following weeks, I watched them chip away. Requests for full environment access. Proposals to pull the database schema into some AI sandbox. Attempts to decouple payment modules. Each time, I checked the clauses and said no. Politely at first. Firmly always. Then Zane Mercer arrived. The flavor futurist Serena discovered on some podcast. He rolled into Slack with man-bun energy, square rimless glasses, and a deck that used Elevate 20 times in the first 10 slides. He called my platform Legacy Scaffolding. He pitched digitizing taste itself through AI preference mapping and sensation triggers. Serena nodded along like he was delivering gospel. I felt the erosion. Not a clean cut, but a slow burial under compliments. They didn't fire me. They reassigned my bonus to fund the AI suite. Ghosted me from sprint reviews. Sent emails without even using my name. I shifted into what I called surgical mode. No confrontation. No threats. Just preparation. I updated keys. Routed credentials. Ensured every instance across the 27 locations still ran clean, but under terms they'd long forgotten. I waited. The Los Angeles flagship launch was supposed to be Serena's crowning moment. $9.2 million build-out. Rooftop draped in lights. Cocktails infused with activated charcoal and beet foam. I stood on the fringe in a simple black dress. Glass of water in hand. Invisible. Until she called me out. That was the moment my loyalty quietly died. Not in fury, but in certainty. By the time champagne corks popped, the first DNS rotation had already begun. Menus wouldn't crash immediately, that would be too obvious. But publishing pipelines would freeze by morning. Cached versions would look perfect until they tried to update anything. No one in that glittering crowd had a clue. The hours after I left the rooftop blurred into quiet focus. I didn't drive home right away. I sat in my parked car a few blocks away. Windows up. AC off. The distant bass from clubs vibrating through the seats. Miami, no. Wait. This was Los Angeles. But the heat felt the same. Heavy and expectant. I opened my laptop on the passenger seat. The terminal cursor blinked like an old friend waiting for instructions. First script, regain control of admin privileges. It pulled everything back to my master profile without revoking their logins outright. They could still see dashboards. But any change would be treated like a museum exhibit. Look, don't touch. Second, subtle DNS token rotation on core domains. Not enough to trigger immediate alarms, but enough that new asset propagation would require validation from the original license holder. Me. Third, the kernel override. The heartbeat of the menu system. I redirected publishing to pull from a local environment I controlled. Any updates Zane's team tried, new dishes, pricing, allergens, would render the old cached version anyway. AI recommendations could spin in their sandbox, but they'd have no endpoint to publish to. I watched the logs populate. Green checks. No fanfare. This wasn't revenge. It was authorship reclaimed. The next morning, the headlines started rolling in even before the first brunch service. Lumina Neo flagship stumbles. QR code failures plague $9.2 million opening. Tech meltdown or deeper ownership issues? Sources whispered about internal licensing questions. I sat at a quiet coffee bar in Echo Park. Espresso in a mason jar. Listening to the whispers around me. No one knew I was the ghost in the machine. At 9:15 a.m., an urgent email arrived from their brand risk law firm. Please confirm willingness to cooperate on restoring mission-critical systems affected by administrative transition. Happy to discuss compensation. I didn't reply. At 12:50 p.m., Ryan texted, Amelia, I didn't know about the bonus reassignment. That's not how we built this. I'll make it right. I believed him. Ryan had always been straight. Our late nights, sketching on napkins, my first small invoice paid in installments, but delivered with real respect. I replied simply, the contract still honors my stake. Let's start there. By afternoon, a formal inquiry came from the parent holding company. Clarification of IP ownership and licensing terms for Lumina OS Suite. They weren't asking favors anymore. They were negotiating with a stakeholder. Inside the flagship, chaos unfolded in waves. The host stand started dinging unusually. QR codes that worked during previews now returned bad gateway errors. Guests at multiple tables couldn't submit orders. The smart displays for wine pairings froze. Kitchen tickets vanished mid-process. Inventory pings lagged. The sous chef yelled about miscounts while a tray of delicate foam shooters crashed to the floor. Zane Mercer strolled in with an espresso. Linen shirt crisp, laughing it off as a tech hiccup. Just restart the instance, he suggested breezily. Their young head of digital, a 20-something with an NFT side hustle, hammered keys. Restarted servers twice. Nothing. Push rejected. Permission denied. Non-licensee. Serena's face tightened. Try admin login. It's gone. Access points pulled. DNS keys don't match. Fear rippled through the room. Waitstaff hovered uncertainly. Guests scanned phones repeatedly, turning them toward each other in confusion. An investor cornered Serena. Was the system even tested properly? She offered a thin smile. Of course. Temporary issue. But temporary doesn't serve $280 tasting menus. 2 tables walked out without paying when the system couldn't generate checks. In the back office, Zane refreshed interfaces frantically. Why is it still down? The digital lead whispered. We don't have the keys. Serena finally said it aloud. Call Ryan. Her voice cracked slightly on his name. She knew what was coming. Hal, head of franchise operations, a solid guy from Chicago who'd been with Ryan since the early pop-up days, watched from the edges. He didn't panic. He leaned into the IT station under the branded canopy and asked quietly, Who owns the damn software again? Silence fell. No one answered immediately. Finally, someone mumbled. We thought it was transferred years ago. Hal blinked. Thought. He pulled out his phone and called Ryan. Who signed the software transfer on the backend platform? You didn't? Are you sure? Serena saw him on the phone and started toward him, trying to keep her composure. Hal turned his back, whispering. The digital team began frantically searching for QuinnForge Holdings. When the cached original license agreement loaded, one of them physically recoiled. It's not us. We don't own it. Hal hung up. Ryan never signed a transfer. The software is licensed privately. By who? He didn't say my name. He just looked toward the service hallway where I'd exited hours earlier. Serena followed his gaze, and her smile vanished completely. The morning after felt unnaturally still, like the city itself was holding its breath. I was 400 miles north in a small coastal town north of Santa Barbara, under an awning at a cafe that served pour-overs in ceramic mugs and didn't ask questions. Headlines dominated phones around me. Lumina Neo opening night disaster. QR crisis or licensing lockout? AI can't save a system without its keys. The cappuccino tasted better without the passive-aggressive corporate undertones I'd grown used to. At 9:12 a.m. Another email. Urgent system access restoration. I let it sit. Ryan followed up again. They've reviewed the contract. It's locked. They know now. I didn't gloat. This was never about destruction. I hadn't bricked servers or leaked code. I'd simply enforced the terms they'd ignored. The envelope arrived 2 days later by courier who handled it like it might detonate. Inside, a formal offer from Lumina Flavors Holdings. $2.1 million for full rights transfer. Retroactive bonuses framed as goodwill reconciliation, and a draft public apology full of words like misunderstanding and oversight. I read it once, folded it, opened my laptop. My reply was brief. I appreciate the offer. However, I decline full transfer. Instead, reinstate my ownership stake per the original 2015 agreement. Require public authorship attribution across all properties, menus, digital footers, internal docs, platform architected by Amelia Quinn. Quinn Forge Holdings. If met, full access restored within 6 hours. I didn't need more money. I didn't want empty words. I wanted the truth acknowledged. Changes began propagating by evening. QR scans worked again. Orders flowed. Wine pairings synced smoothly. Lumina's official channels released a statement. Lumina Flavors thanks Amelia Quinn for her foundational contributions in developing the platform that powers our guest experiences. We are proud to formally recognize her work and have updated our documentation accordingly. Ryan was quietly brought back to oversee technical continuity. Serena issued a shorter personal note. I'm stepping back to focus on creative direction. The soul of Lumina is collaboration. I forgot that momentarily. I checked the Live Miami No. Los Angeles flagship menu footer that night. There it was in clean black text. Platform developed by Amelia Quinn in partnership with Quinn Forge Holdings. The truth. Finally visible. But the story doesn't end with credits on a screen. It lingers in the quiet realizations that follow. I never returned to the office. I didn't need to. The system ran under my renewed oversight. Stable. Evolving on my terms. Ryan and I spoke occasionally, professional, respectful, the way it always should have been. Serena's public profile shifted toward visionary curator rather than hands-on operator. Zane Mercer quietly moved on to another startup promising to revolutionize sensory data. What stayed with me was the psychology of it all. The way people assume infrastructure just exists reliable, invisible, replaceable until it reminds them otherwise. The casual arrogance of those who benefit from creators but undervalue the hands that built the foundation. The slow death of loyalty when recognition is stripped away publicly. In tech and hospitality. Especially in America where startups scale fast and founders chase exits. It's easy to forget that every seamless experience rests on someone's code, someone's late nights, someone's intellectual property protected by clauses no one reads until crisis hits. I didn't celebrate with champagne or public posts. I simply breathed easier knowing the heartbeat of the operation was once again under proper management, mine. Yet sometimes, late at night when I review logs from across the chain, I wonder about the cost of that lesson. How many other little IT wizards sit quietly in the background, carrying empires on their backs while others take the stage? How often does humiliation file paperwork instead of leaving visible bruises? The system didn't fail that night. It simply stopped listening to those who never owned it. And when ownership was remembered, the lights came back on, not with thunder, but with the quiet return of respect. The menus at the Los Angeles flagship still carry my name in the footer. Small text. Easy to miss if you're not looking. But it's there. Authorship restored. The recipe belongs to the one who wrote it. And in the end, that's what matters most in this industry of fleeting trends and viral moments. The code remembers. The creator decides when it serves.